Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. And again, welcome. Thanks for joining our application information webinar here this afternoon. My name is Greg, and I'll be your moderator for today's event. A couple of quick notes before we get started. In regards to Zoom, if you're using a phone line, make sure that your audio is linked. If you get dropped from the Zoom call, you could simply just dial back in. You all are muted upon entry, so it's important to note that in order to ask questions, you should use the Q&A feature that's at the bottom of your Zoom dialog or Zoom box in a small box that says Q&A. That's how questions will be answered throughout this webinar after our formal presentation portion. We do have a lot of folks on the line here this afternoon, so we're going to try to get to every question possible, but if we don't have an opportunity to answer your particular question, feel free to reach out to smart@smartscholarship.org. Again, that's smart@smartscholarship.org. And we'll say that a few more times here throughout the presentation. Okay, with that being said, we'd first like to run a couple of polls just to get a little bit more information about you. So if you could go ahead and answer the polls that are on your screen, we'd appreciate that. A lot of votes coming in here, team. Overwhelming majority so far students, a lot found out through the website or email here. And we do have some veterans on the line as well. Okay, and then we have one more poll that we'd like to launch. So if you could go ahead and answer those two questions, and then I promise we'll get into the formal portion of the presentation. A lot of folks have heard of SMART. It's like about 75% or more so far, and a nice breakdown of how they're hearing about it. A lot of word of mouth though, or website here. So now I'd like to take a moment and introduce our two speakers for this afternoon. First, we're going to hear from Miss Alexis Shade, and she is our component liaison team lead. And then she'll be followed by Miss Dima Kalnin, and Dima is our outreach deputy team lead. So with that being said, I'd like to go ahead and get us started with Miss Alexis Shade. Alexis, over to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Greg. Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome. I hope everyone is staying healthy and safe out there. My name is Alexis, and like Greg said, I am the component liaison team lead for SMART. Today, we have a wonderful presentation for you all that will not only provide information on the SMART Scholarship, but we'll also go over the ins and the outs of the application process. So, what is SMART? SMART stands for the Science, Mathematics, and Research for Transformation Scholarship Program and is part of the National Defense Education Program. SMART has a mission to enhance the Department of Defense's civilian workforce with innovative scientists, engineers, and researchers from across the United States. Our vision is to create a highly skilled DoD STEM workforce that competes with the dynamic trends in technology and innovation to protect national security. So let's go ahead and dive in with our eligibility requirements. Next slide, Greg. Thanks. All right, so every year our application is open from the 1st of August to the 1st of December. In order to be eligible to apply for SMART, you must meet these basic requirements. First, you must be a US citizen. However, you may apply to the program if you are from Canada, the UK, New Zealand, and Australia. You must be at least 18 years of age as of August of 2022. You must maintain a GPA of 3.0 on a 4.0 scale at all times in the program. If you are an undergrad, you must be pursuing a degree in one of our 21 STEM disciplines. For graduate level, you must be either pursuing or requesting to pursue a STEM degree in those disciplines. You must be able to obtain and maintain a security clearance, be able to complete an 8 to 12-week internship in the summer months, and be willing to accept employment with the DoD upon graduation. For our scholarship, the minimum length of funding you can request is 1 year, meaning that as of August of 2022, you must have at least 1 year left of your degree pursuit in order for us to fund. Another way to look at this is you must have a graduation date of at least fall 2023 to meet our minimum. The maximum length of funding you can request is 5 years. With these basic eligibility requirements met, let's move on to learn more about the wonderful benefits of our scholarship. Great. So what do you receive as a SMART Scholar? First, SMART funds full tuition for any accredited university for undergraduate or graduate level programs. There is no cap on tuition, and SMART funds tuition directly to the school. The length of funding depends on the length of time you need to either complete your current degree or start and finish a graduate degree. For example, let's say you're applying to the SMART program as a current sophomore, and you want SMART to fund the rest of your bachelor's degree. You would apply this fall for 2 years of funding to complete that bachelor's degree. Alternatively, let's say you just completed an undergraduate degree and you'd like SMART to fund your PhD pursuit. You could request up to the full 5 years of funding to start and finish that PhD. SMART provides you with an annual stipend, which is $25,000 for undergraduates, $33,000 for masters, and $38,000 for PhD students. You will also receive an annual book allowance and health insurance allowance. SMART is not just a scholarship that funds the ability for you to go to school. We provide you with the opportunity to attend an 8 to 12-week internship over the summer if your award crosses the summer period. And during those internships, you'll have the benefit of being mentored by an experienced member of the DoD. The same folks who are going to be your future coworkers and supervisors when you graduate. The best part of the SMART Scholarship Program and why we're called a Scholarship for Service program is that you have a guaranteed job with the Department of Defense when you graduate. The SMART Service Commitment is a one-to-one commitment, meaning that every year the SMART program funds your degree, you will owe 1 year of service in the form of full-time civilian employment with the DoD. So before we move on, there are 3 scholarship requirements I'd like to pause a little on and highlight. Next slide, please, Greg. First, in order to work for the federal government as a civilian, you must be able to obtain and maintain a security clearance and maintain that throughout the duration of the program and the completion of your service commitment. Your sponsoring facility will initiate the clearance, and if you're not familiar with this process, this slide includes the type of information that will be disclosed during the clearance process. Please keep in mind that you must follow all federal laws, regardless of the state you live in. For more information on clearances, you can go ahead and visit the Office of Personnel Management, or OPM.gov. Next, let's go ahead and discuss the STEM disciplines for the SMART program. Got it, thanks. This list is also available on our website, and keep in mind that these are broad STEM categories. If your specific degree isn't listed here, is there a category it could potentially fall under? If you aren't sure, feel free to reach out to the SMART Help Desk and we can help you identify that. Okay, next slide. Okay. Finally, let's talk about our sponsoring facilities. A key factor to what makes our scholarship so unique is our sponsoring facilities. These are the folks who make selections based on their workforce needs and will sponsor you as a SMART Scholar during your degree completion, summer internships, and will hire you when you finish your degree. SMART works with over 200 lab sites, test and evaluation centers, medical facilities, intelligence communities, the Army Corps of Engineers, all across the Army, Navy, Air Force, and other DoD organizations. When you apply to the SMART program, you're actually applying for a job, for mentoring, for all of those wonderful benefits affiliated with one of our facilities. Check out we have a new website. It has a lot of detailed information about what type of STEM disciplines these facilities are looking to select, with degree levels and what type of work they do, and what it would be like to work for those organizations. Also on our website, smartscholarship.org, is the contact information for my team of component liaisons that work with SMART, but interface directly with our facilities. They can help you navigate the website, or if you have specific questions about a particular facility, check it out. Next, the benefits of working as a civilian for the Department of Defense. The DoD is at the forefront of modernization, with applications from sea to space, solving complex problems, all to assist the warfighter. Many of our modern daily use tech comes from research that the DoD has done, including the internet, GPS, drones, artificial intelligence, machine learning, just to name a few. Working as a civilian is a stable career path with career mobility, mentoring, great benefits and retirements, and the civilian path is another way to serve your country through your scientific research, engineering, and problem-solving skills. Next slide, please. Okay. So we'll pause here a little bit and talk all about the SMART life cycle. We follow a life cycle. So once you are accepted into our program, there is no need to reapply each year. When you apply, you're applying for the remainder of the degree to be funded to its completion. There are several milestones you'll hit while completing our program that happen during 4 program phases. So if selected for SMART, we make sure that you are thoroughly oriented to SMART's policies and procedures. We send you to your sponsoring facility for a site visit. That gives you the opportunity to meet with the folks that selected you for the scholarship, get oriented to their organization and the surrounding area, and it gives you an opportunity to ask all the questions you need to really ensure that you're a good fit with their organization before our funding begins. Funding begins when you enter into what we call phase 1, which starts in, for you all, it would start in August of 2022. That's when you receive your monthly stipends, your funding, your tuition starts, your allowances begin. During phase 1, you are enrolled full-time in school, maintaining that GPA requirement. Your security clearance is also initiated. And during the summer months, if your award crosses a summer period, you're attending an internship with that sponsoring facility. When you are ready to graduate, SMART helps to facilitate the transition between phase 1 of the program into what we call the service commitment phase, or phase 2. SMART has an expedited hiring authority that provides, that is given to our facilities to ensure a smooth transition from recent graduate to full-time civilian. So once you begin your work, day 1 is the start of that service commitment. And just a reminder, that is a 1-to-1 commitment. So for however many years that we provided you in funding is the length that you maintain that level of employment. So what happens during phase 2? Well, during phase 2, you're working full-time. You're working to complete your service commitment, receiving all the normal salary and benefits as any civilian would. You simply go to work, and that serves back the commitment the Department of Defense has invested in your education and your mentoring. Once you have completed your service commitment, you're free to leave their employment, transfer to other organizations, or stay. That's the whole point of the program. We have a 91% success rate in scholars completing their phase 2 commitment, and roughly 70% have remained employed beyond their commitment with the Department of Defense. So really great numbers there. So finally, let's take a look at our cohort from this past year. Next slide, please. Last year, we received roughly 2,500 submitted applications. From there, 1,485 moved on to what we call our semifinalist round, and we were able to move forward with 416 scholarships awarded in 2021. As you can see from the chart, the top 3 disciplines are computer and computational sciences, electrical engineering, and mechanical engineering. Now, don't worry if your STEM discipline isn't as selected as other STEM disciplines are. The selections reflect the workforce needs of our facilities in that given selection year. Another great reason to check out the website is to see who's looking for your specific STEM discipline. Okay, next slide, please. And finally, I wanted to provide some examples of SMART scholars. So Kiana here is a phase 1 scholar attending NC-A&T, pursuing a degree in information technology. Once she graduates, she will begin work for the U.S. Army Communications Electronics Command. She also serves as a SMART ambassador, which is an opportunity to network with other SMART scholars and also spread the message of the SMART program through your own networks, your college or universities. Shibin is a phase 2 scholar who received his PhD in electrical engineering from the University of California, San Diego. He is sponsored now by the Naval Information Warfare Center Pacific, which is also in San Diego, and oversees a department of 10 engineers in machine learning and computer vision. He's also a great SMART mentor. Jennifer was actually one of our first awardees, and we funded her bachelor's degree in mathematics at the University of California, Davis, which started her long career path with the DoD. She fulfilled her commitment with the Air Force Research Lab Sensors Directorate, and 15 years later, she's now a PhD and is still working for the DoD. And finally here, we've got Ryan, who got his bachelor's and his master's funded by the SMART program in electrical engineering at MIT. He is now serving his service commitment with the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. If you want to learn more about our Smart Scholars, again, check out our website, check out our social media platforms for videos, for interviews, and presentations done with our Smart Scholars. There's a great wealth of information there, and they're doing some pretty cool stuff. So with that, I'm going to toss it over to Dima to talk more about the application.
Awesome. Thank you, Alexis. So as a reminder, the application is currently open right now through December 1st. And we'll start by going over some of the timelines so that you can know what to expect in the next year. So as I mentioned, the application window is open August 1st through December 1st. Once that window closes, all of the completed applications will then be evaluated by a panel of academia and DoD personnel. And then the top 50 to 60% of each discipline will then move over to the semifinalist round that Alexis was mentioning earlier. So those semifinalists are then put into a pool to be selected by our sponsoring facilities. And that usually occurs between February and March. And then in April is when official award notifications go out and our awardees or applicants start to accept their awards. And in May and June is when we have our site visits, which again are those 1 to 2 day visits with the facilities to get to know the team, get to know the facility, and also make sure that it's a right fit for you. And then as soon as August 1st rolls around, our phase 0 scholars who are our awardees are then transitioned to phase 1. And throughout the year, they would be in their academic pursuit phase and then pursuing internships over the summer if their award is over 1 year. So in order to apply, you'd first want to go to our website, and there is an Apply Now button right at the front page on the homepage. And that's where you'll go to register and check your eligibility to ensure that you meet all of the basic requirements before you can actually begin the application process. So on the registration page, this is what it looks like. It's very basic information, your date of birth, your name, email address. Your email address is the one that you'll use to create the account for your application. And then on the left-hand side, the eligibility requirements, if you hover over those are just reminders of the eligibility requirements that Alexis went over earlier, that also are found in the application tips video that's at the beginning of that page. And then the right-hand panel has all of the benefits that we also went over today. And all of this information is on our website as well. If you have any more questions about specific eligibility or benefits or anything. So once you complete this registration page, you'll then be sent 2 emails. One email will have your username and the link to access the full application. And then the second email will be a temporary password so that you can go in and log in to your account. So once this section is done, you'll then have access to the full application portal, which is on the next slide. So for those of you who have already started an application, this should look a little familiar to you. There are 8 sections that you'll need to complete on the application. The first couple boxes are just basic information for you to acknowledge. So going through the Privacy Act, the application instructions, and then those program materials, which will take you to our video resources page so you can look at some of our application tips and any former webinars that we've posted there as well. And then the About Me section is just your basic contact information, address, and demographics. Again, just very basic information about yourself. The next 4 sections are more of the meat to the application. The proposed award details has 2 separate sections. There's the proposed area of study, and that's where you'll be letting us know what degree and what major you'd like funded if you were to be offered the award. So one thing to note that we've seen a few questions come in already for the proposed start date. So that is the proposed start date of the SMART program, which is August 2022. So even if you started your program last year, or if you started this year, if you're a freshman, you'll want to put that August 2022 date in that section, because that way it kind of gives us an idea of how many years of funding you're requesting from the time that the program starts next year. So if you're only requesting 1 year of funding, that would be August 2022 to the spring of 2023, for example. And then also in that section, there are the sponsoring facility preferences. So that's where you'll put a minimum of 3 sponsoring facilities that you're interested in working with. So your top 3 preferences. You can put a maximum of 5, but we'll really be looking at those top 3 facility preferences. And with that, you'll also include a reason for your selection. And if you choose to add this in, you can also put in your top 3 geographical location preferences. With the personal statements, you'll have one long essay. The essay questions are located in that section. There's a second prompt for any graduate students out there to add on to the additional questions, and then another prompt for any retention scholars. And then just as a reminder, retention scholars are anyone who currently works for one of the SMART sponsoring facilities. And then the My Experiences section is a lot about your academic and professional background. So you'll want to upload your unofficial transcripts. You'll want to upload your resume as well. And all attachments in the application do need to be in a PDF format. So make sure you remember that once those are uploaded. And in this section as well, you'll want to include any community service, any volunteer work or leadership, and any previous DoD programs that you may have participated in the past. And then with the references, the last section, so you'll want to include a minimum of 2 reference providers into the application. And you can choose up to 5 if you'd like, but we only will review the top 3. And you have the ability to rank those as well in the application. So for your section of the application for students and applicants, you'll want to include the name and the email address of your reference provider. Once you put that in and hit send email, an email will be generated to your reference provider with instructions on how to upload the letter of reference for you. Once you've completed all the sections, even if you're still waiting on your reference letters to come in, as long as that progress bar at the top is complete, 8/8, you'll be able to submit your application, and you'll see a submit button at the end of this page. Once your references are in the system, you'll be able to track that through here as well. You'll notice that the status of your application will say completed. So where it says in progress right now, it'll change to submitted if you're still waiting for references, and then completed once you have everything in there. And then one last thing to note that I missed earlier for the registration page. If you're currently a freshman and this is your first year in college, you can put your high school GPA in the registration page. You'll also want to upload your high school transcript to the application itself in that My Experiences section. Once the application window is closed, the program reaches out to all freshmen so that we can start collecting those college transcripts for the fall 2021 semester. So a couple tips just to keep in mind. I mentioned that we had our application tip videos. Those are also located in the application in each of their respective sections. So for the personal statement, just make sure you're standing out, explaining, why you want to be a SMART scholar, how you think that your educational and professional goals can help contribute to the mission of the Department of Defense. Make sure you're also sending your personal statement to either an advisor, maybe your reference or professor, someone who can proofread it prior to you putting it into the application. And then with references, make sure that you reach out to your reference providers before you put their names and email addresses in the system, just to give them a heads up and let them know so that they can expect the email from the SMART program. And then make sure that you're looking at individuals who can speak to your experiences, speak to your professionalism or leadership or any of your future skills or ambitions as well. And then with the facility preferences, we understand there's over 200 facilities. So it is an overwhelming amount of facilities to find what the best match is for you. So we really do recommend you doing your research. We have a great filtering system on the website, so you can narrow down based on STEM discipline or location or what your preferences are. And if you still have questions after looking through some of the facilities, feel free to reach out to smart@smartscholarship.org. As Alexis mentioned, we have a team of component liaisons that serve as the interface between both the program and the sponsoring facilities that we work with. So they do have a lot of knowledge in this area. So if you have questions about a specific Army or Navy facility, feel free to reach out and we'll definitely help you answer those questions and network and connect you with the right people. So again, we highly encourage you to connect with us. All the videos that I mentioned and a lot of these different tips that we went over today, we do post them on social media. We try and stay engaged with our audience. So definitely connect with us on social media. You can also subscribe to our mailing list. So if you go to our website, in the top right-hand corner, there you'll see a subscribe button, and you'll be able to join our mailing list, where we'll just inform you of any future webinars or events or any updates to the application as well. And then I did notice that there were some faculty on the line. So if you are interested, we do have our evaluator panelist registration that opens on September 1st. And it's a really great way to support the STEM community and help identify the next generation of smart scholars. So with that, I will give it back to you, Greg.
All right, excellent. Hey, thanks so much, Alexis and Dima. I really appreciate that. One note that I wanted to make before we hop right into Q&A is that this session is being recorded. We'll have it posted out on our website. We saw quite a few questions come through the Q&A feature about recording. It'll be posted on the website within roughly about 4 to 5 business days after this. So you can rest assured that you'll be able to go back through here and review it again and check out some more questions that were answered, if you have to miss it or if you just want to go back through. All right, so the first question that we have actually is around high school eligibility and fall transcript due date. Had a number of questions come through their team, and one particular question is, or statement in question, I will have a 4.0 summer transcript from UNC, but should I wait to apply until I have my fall transcript?
Let you take that one, Dima.
So I'm assuming this person is a freshman. So you can upload the summer transcript and your high school transcripts as well. As I mentioned earlier, after the application is closed, we will be reaching out to all college freshmen to get that fall 2021 transcript as well. So for the time being, you can put in the transcripts that you do have access to. Excellent,
thanks. All right, next question we have is from Jean. Jean asks, just clarifying, states and then asks, just clarifying, juniors are not eligible because they would not be able to do summer internship before graduation. Is that correct?
No, our current requirement is, we can fund a minimum of a 1-year award, and only if the award were at least 1.5 years would you be doing that internship requirement. So if your award is not crossing that summer period, the requirement does not exist for you. You would just begin work immediately upon graduation if you are a 1-year awardee.
Great, thanks, Alexis. All right, next question. There's a few questions we have around citizenship, actually quite a few. Can you touch on those points again? And one specific question is, can I apply if I'm expecting my US citizenship by May of 2022?
Sure. We encourage everyone to apply to the SMART program. The eligibility requirements really deal with our security clearance requirement. So in order to be employed by the federal government, you must be able to obtain and maintain a security clearance. For a lot of our facilities, the vast majority of them, they do require a clearance in order to be hired. We have some organizations that do not require a clearance, so you can shoot us an email and we'll help you navigate which ones those are. But for the ones that do require a security clearance, you have to be a US citizen in order to get that clearance. If you are are a dual citizen, you might shoot us an email and we'll help you with understanding what and when that would be a requirement that you become completely a US citizen. So essentially, if you're working on your citizenship, if you're in the process of it, in order for the facility to be able to initiate it, that one timeline of August of 2022, that may not be an issue. So encourage everyone to apply.
Great, thank you, Alexis. All right, next question we have from Janelle. Can the stipend be combined with existing fellowships?
Yes. Yes, it can. So as long as the other scholarships that you are receiving are not federally sourced, meaning that the funding itself does not come from another federal source, that's a double dipping rule. So if you are receiving other scholarships, yes, you can. And there's no cap on however much funding you are receiving from other scholarships, as long as they're not federal.
All right, perfect. Next question from Jack. Jack asks, is it an option to have SMART assist you in completing your bachelor's as well as graduate program directly following undergrad studies?
Yeah, so if you're applying to the SMART program as an undergrad now, and you think you might want to also, hey, my school has a great accelerated 5-year bachelor's to master's program, you can apply to SMART as a bachelor's master's. You can always not to pursue that master's, or the opposite way. SMART has a really wonderful opportunity that if you're awarded a bachelor's degree and your facility is on board with you getting a master's degree, we're able to bump you up to that extra level and continue that funding. So we have a great opportunity in that.
Great, thanks, Alexis. Here is a question for you, Dima. What would you recommend to help strengthen my application?
A lot of again, the application tip videos that we have for the different sections, I think those would be very beneficial. Making connections with the liaisons with regards to the facilities, doing your research about, the DoD mission or any specific facility mission, so that you could potentially incorporate that into your personal statement, or, just making sure that your interests align with the facilities that you're looking at. And yeah, I mean, just looking through those application tips would really help.
Great, thanks, Dima. Next question we have is from Carson. Carson asks, do you have a summer internship each summer that you are enrolled in the program, or is it one summer internship throughout the academic years?
Great question. Each time the award crosses a summer period, you have that requirement to do an internship of 8 to 12 weeks with your organization. So let's say you applied for 4 years and you're doing that bachelor's, master's, you're completing 3 internships with your sponsoring facility. That's 3 summers worth of mentoring, hands-on experience with the organization, being able to, meet other SMART scholars, network, and really feel ingrained in your organization. So by the time you graduate and they onboard you, you just hit the ground running.
Awesome, thanks. Next question we have, it looks like essentially what they're asking is, if you're denied the scholarship, so if you don't get the scholarship on your first try, can you still apply for the scholarship the following year?
Yes, you can apply as many times as you want to the scholarship, as long as you're still eligible.
All right, great. Thank you. Just another reminder, I'm going through seeing some more questions about recording. Yes, the recording will be available here after, and we'll make sure that gets sent out to everybody. Okay, next question. Do we begin the first summer employment work term in the summer of 2022, or the first work term would be summer of 2023?
Another great question. So technically, if you're applying this cycle for an award, as Dima mentioned, the award would go out in April, and there's no funding in that phase 0 is what we call it. There's no funding expended until starting the 1st of August. So what we do in that initial summer is send you to do a site visit. And that's where you're reaffirming that, yes, I'm a great match with my location, or no, thanks, I'll reapply next year for a different location. So your first internship would not be until the summer of 2023. So If you have other internships that you are completing in the summer period of 2022, you're free to complete those ones as well, as long as it ends by the 1st of August. That's also a common question.
Great. Thanks, Alexis.
Mhm.
All right. Next question is about age requirements. Any max age requirements?
Nope.
Okay. Give me just a,
And
yeah,
I think,
go ahead.
Greg, just to piggyback off of that, because some folks I did see said that they're already current DoD employees. So if you are currently a DoD employee, yes, you can apply to the SMART program for a higher level of degree. And I would encourage you to reach out to your facility, your organization that you're currently working with, make sure that they are currently a SMART sponsoring facility, and also then to reach out to the component liaison teams to help walk you through what that would look like, because that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, perfect. Hey, thanks so much for that, Alexis. I appreciate that. Have a question here from Megan about application. How should I address a double major in the proposed area of study section?
Yes, the double major. I believe just put your, you'd have to only put one major. Technically, we're only funding one major at a time. But if you have a double major, I would just put the major that you are most interested in, if that's possible, in pursuing a career with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and make sure that in your statements where you're able to thoroughly explain what your academic research and interest is in, that you're making it very clear that you're pursuing two majors, and just a little policy note that if you are pursuing two majors, the major that we are funding is the one that we are basing our award length on. So if you are currently just pursuing one major and you wanted to add another, but it's going to add more time, that won't, we got to keep you on your schedule.
Excellent. All right. Next question we have here from one of our attendees asks, how does the application process change as a retention scholar? Specifically, with putting 3 sponsoring facilities when I'm already employed by one, putting in a university when I'm in the process of applying, et cetera.
So it's the same application for retention, folks. The only difference is that I believe it's in the professional experiences section. You'll have to provide a supervisor letter and let us know what the facility is that you're currently working at. And then we sort all of that out once the applications actually close, and contact your supervisors and the facilities to make sure that you still are working at that specific facility.
Mm-hmm.
So even with the facility preferences, you can put the current facility that you're working at right now, and then we'll be able to tell once that goes through.
Right.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have something to add, Alexis?
I was just going to say, we make it, very clear that if you are currently working for one of our organizations, that is the method, like they're able to select you.
Mhm.
So we make it very clear to other organizations that might say, "Ooh, this looks like a great candidate," that they know that you are already with a different organization.
Excellent. Thank you. Next question. For freshmen in college, would references be from college or from our high school?
It's really who is able to speak to your experiences, basically who knows you more, preferably college professor, but understanding that we're, only not even a month into the school year. You may not have made those connections yet. So high school teachers are definitely acceptable as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you've had any experience working with organizations like STEM organizations, did you have a mentor? They could also be an excellent resource. Or if you've done any internships with people, they also make great resources.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, seems like we're getting a couple of questions here around this. So I'll touch base on one specifically from Paul. If I completed the SMART application last year and my name and email have not changed, do I have to start the application from scratch, or will SMART preload some of my last application's information?
So you will have to start your application over. For those who register who already have an account, you'll be able to just reset your password. Some of your information, just your basic contact information, might pre-populate, but since we have made a few changes this year to the application, you will need to start over from the beginning.
Thanks, Dima. Next question from Jasmine. Do we have to live near the facilities, near the sponsoring facilities? Or will this be handled virtually? Is transportation to the facility included? It seems to be around internships.
Yes. Yep. Great question. So you can be selected by any facility throughout the entire US. On the application, there's the ability to kind of let folks know what geographic preferences you have, if you have them, and what facilities you'd like to. So you could be living in California and be selected by a facility in Virginia, and vice versa. So where that becomes something to consider is, yes, during your internship periods, you are required to travel. And for students that live 50 miles or more away from their sponsoring facility, we do provide additional internship support payments to help offset that cost while you're attending your internship. And it's only applicable during that internship time. Yeah, leave that there. Anything else, Dima, with that?
Yeah, and just another thing to add to that with the internship support payments, because I know we get this question a lot with internships, but you'll continue to receive your stipend through the summer months as well. So those internship support payments, if you're eligible for those, are in addition to your annual stipend.
Great point. Same goes for retention. Retention students, if they're not co-located, as we call it, there may be additional support.
All right. Next question we have from Anna. Do other facilities review our application or only the preferred facilities we list on our application? Goes on to ask, do other branch offices of the same facility review our application? So for example, Defense Intelligence Agency has several branch locations. Do I need to list all to be considered?
That's an excellent question. So our selecting facilities will look at who puts them as a preference, but also they will look at their STEM disciplines that they need. They'll review many different methods of searching our application, or we call it our selection portal. There's many ways that they could keyword search to find specific needs. So the preferences are a way of getting initial visibility. So if there's definitely organizations that you want to work with, or you want them to take a look at you, that's what the preferences will help. But absolutely, by no means does it limit you to those, because facilities are also interfacing and working on finding who's a good match for them just outside of those preferences. The geographic location is also another helpful tool for our facilities to find out who other folks are.
Great, thanks, Alexis.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a question about SAT scores this year. Are we requiring SAT scores this year? If so, does the DoD super score SAT scores?
So we do not require any standardized testing. So that includes SATs and GREs. So you don't have to worry about the rest of that question.
Okay, next question we have from Jacob. Does this process change if you already have a security clearance? Also, are you required to go to the DoD internships, or could you go somewhere else as private industry?
If you already have a clearance, that will just assist in the ease of getting you access during your internships. We would require our organization to take ownership over that clearance. So also just keeping in mind, the facility may also require a higher level of clearance that you currently have. So it would be good to just mention that you do already have a clearance, and it just might help with the process. But it's not a requirement. We have our facilities initiate a clearance into the level of clearance that is required for the position. The second part of that, Greg, could you refresh?
Yeah.
What's the second part of that question? Lost my train of thought.
No, you're okay.
Because it was good.
It
was a good one. I think it was something, it's can you do an internship at an alternative location? So the purpose of our program is that that level of workforce development. So the facility that selects you and the level of mentoring and the type of internship experience they're providing is with the organization that you will be hired by later on. So we require that you complete your 8 to 12 week internship with your organization, and that's our requirement. There was also a question from another applicant about, shoot, I've lost it again. No, I'll remember it. It's another good one.
No, we've got
We've got
a
so
lot of
many.
great
There are
some-
314 questions. Keep them coming.
quite a few questions here. So
Mhm.
again, we'll keep this going as long as we possibly can here, answering questions. But again, smart@smartscholarship.org. If you don't have it.
I recall
that
now.
trigger
It did. It was about, she mentioned the Defense Intelligence Agency. And so they have multiple locations that they do select for. So we list all of the locations that make selections underneath parent commands. We call that a parent command. So if there's an organization that, has a parent command, we have a selector from them, and then they interface with each individual location within their organization that does participate. Again, checking out the website, we have a list of all of those locations that participate. And so if you're putting the organization down, you have the ability to put the specific location that you're looking for. But the parent command will review those as well.
Great, thanks. Next question from Praven, who asks, mentions and then asks, I am a senior on campus and not sure which college I will go for graduate school. Can I still apply?
Yes, you can. And on the application in the proposed area of study section, you have the option to select undecided if you're interested in pursuing a master's next year. And then if you are offered an award, we'll just ask that you let us know by the time you're offered an award where you've decided to go.
Mm-hmm. Same with community colleges. I saw a couple of questions in there about, like, I'm currently attending a community college. What do I place for SMART? And it depends on which university or school you'll be actually attending as of the 1st of August of 2022. So if you're still in a community college at that point, you'll need to put that you are planning on attending. That is your college as of right now. And then I would just discuss, because you don't know yet if you're going to be where you're going to go after that. Some community colleges do have pipelines that you have guaranteed acceptance into this state university once you've completed that. Just make that clear in your academic pursuit essays.
Great.
Mhm.
Thank you. Med school.
We do not fund med school. No.
Okay.
We've got the STEM disciplines, and yes, so we do not fund medical degrees, only technical tracks in STEM disciplines.
Yep, thanks, Alexis. Okay, so question from James. I'll skip down to the question. For recommendations, are you allowed to have 2 different recommendations from 2 different people, but from the same company?
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, there's no, as long as it's 2 different people that can both speak to your, again, experiences and any of your background, I think that's fine.
Okay. Thank you. Scrolling through a couple of questions here. Looks like we have a question from Jared. Is in major, in quotes, is in major GPA considered in the case of a student that has a lower cumulative GPA due to grades from a different major?
No, so SMART takes the GPA that your university calls your cumulative GPA. So that may include transcripts that you've had. If you've had transfer schools, other schools may not include those. So whatever your university considers your cumulative GPA in that STEM discipline is what the SMART program accepts. So
just to clarify, one-for-one employment after graduation paid, correct?
Yep, you're an employee of the organization. You're receiving all the benefits, that the salary benefits that they would provide any other employee. So yes, you are getting paid.
All right, perfect. The question from Robert there. Give me just a moment.
There are always a couple of questions about pay, Greg. So do you want me to kind of address sort of a general?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Actually, that'd be
sure.
great.
Sure. So this question comes up often of what's my salary going to look like as a civilian with the DoD, and we would encourage you to go onto the OPM website for civilian employment, and you can see what are pay bands. Essentially, there's a scale of what you could be offered as a starting salary based on your degree level. But on top of that, there are other things that you won't see online. Things like what is the locality pay for, let's say, Washington, D.C. That's going to increase and add to that pay level. So the SMART program does not get involved with negotiations of pay. So what we do instead is we encourage you during that site visit to talk with the human resources departments of the facilities that select you so that you have a realistic understanding of what that would look like when you do graduate. Many other factors are taken into consideration as well. So we encourage that as a type of question to ask prior to reaffirming the acceptance of the award. But the SMART program itself does not set any requirements or restrictions to facilities in that way.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks, Alexis.
Yep.
All right, question here on from Angelina. What does SMART look for in an applicant? In other words, what should we prioritize when filling out the application? Also, should incoming college freshmen use references from high school teachers or ask teachers at their university?
Sure. So I think that every section is important on the application. But you'll definitely want to spend more time looking at the sponsoring facilities so that you can fill out that section. And then the personal statements as well. One of the things I had mentioned earlier is for the personal statements, just make sure that you're having those proofread as well, and getting feedback from either an advisor or your reference provider or anyone that can really help you out with that prior to putting that in the application. And as far as the second part of that question, sorry, do you mind repeating that, Greg? What was that?
Sure. Give me just a moment. Let me go over to that. Should incoming college freshmen use references from high school teachers or ask their new teachers at their university?
Right. So I think what we were saying earlier is that, we understand that as freshmen, you may not know all of your professors, or they may not feel comfortable speaking to your background and experiences due to the time limit of when the application opens. So, you can reach out to your high school teachers if that is an option. If you have any mentors or any past experience, either with an internship or with any kind of community or leadership roles, you can reach out to those type of references as well.
Thank you. Next question. During the school year, would part-time employment be allowed?
Yes, we have a policy that you can't work more than 16 hours a week during the school year. SMART provides you with an annual stipend that's dispersed monthly to you, so that you don't have to go out and get a job to pay for the other elements that we don't pay for directly, like room and board and your car payments and your food bills. So that stipend is meant to help offset those living expenses. But if you do get a job, we limit it during the school year. But during holidays, breaks, it's not limited at that time. So.
All right. Interesting question here from Joseph. Seems to be talking about sabbaticals and hiatuses. The question is, are you allowed to pause your commitment, such as wait a few years after college to spend time?
So upon degree completion, you are required to begin your SMART commitment. So the only deferrals are very rare, especially because we now offer the ability to obtain a 2-year master's degree as part of our first program. So you are required to begin employment immediately upon graduation. If you're sick, if you are a reservist and you get pulled for reservist duty, that's something we can work with. We have a leave of absence policy for very specific cases, but just not to take a sabbatical.
Thank you. All right, question here from Savannah. If my spouse and myself are in the same major and applying, can we request to be in the same facility upon graduation?
We actually have a lot of married smart scholars or smart scholars that met each other. A lot of really fun stories about some smart scholars getting together. So I would encourage you when you apply to put the same preferences down, and to let someone know during the selection process, like Dima mentioned, happens in the February through early February through mid-March period. Interested facilities will be interviewing you, and that's just another way that you can mention then as well that, hey, actually my spouse and I are applying to the program, and could you consider her application as well, or his application? So we would definitely encourage you to put all the effort on the front end as well. And yeah.
All right. Question here from Jesus. Would I be able to apply for the scholarship for my undergrad, work my commitment, then apply again for grad school?
Yeah, you can, as long as you fulfill your commitment. And then, as Alexis mentioned, if you are doing a master's after your undergrad, you have the option, as long as your facility signs off, to extend your award and pursue a master's degree. And then the service commitment would just add on at the end of both degrees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you are, let's say we fund, we fund your first degree, and you're currently in the middle of serving back your commitment, like Dima said, you can reapply to SMART as a retention student and be picked up by the same facility, or for the opportunity to be picked up by the same facility for another degree. So there's a couple options there.
All right. Thank you both. So the next question here we have is the school notified of the award? If yes, when? In order to apply it to the tuition expenses for the academic semester?
Yep. Right around this time is when we provided we provide a sponsored letter that goes directly to your registrar's office that indicates to them that the SMART Scholarship Program is a full tuition scholarship, and all tuition expenses can be invoiced directly to us, and we pay those invoices directly. We do not pay for room and board. We don't pay for lab fees. We pay for your full tuition, for full-time enrollment tuition.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, while we pay full tuition directly to the universities, those stipends will go directly to the actual scholars.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we get that all sorted out. As soon as you hit the ground running, and the 1st of August, we pay tuition bills all the time.
Yeah, so some really great questions here this afternoon. So next one here is, does choice of school affect competitiveness? For example, this particular attendee noticed that there's over 100 Virginia Tech awardees and only 1 to 2 from some other schools. So should I aim my school applications towards these highly awarded schools?
Apply to schools that fit your degree pursuit and that have programs that are of interest to you, that you think are of value to your education. And I would more speak to that because we're always looking to increase and help our facilities identify well-qualified students at schools that may not be as represented. I think you'll see in the big state schools that we see, are Virginia Tech kind of schools. We also have a lot of facilities in those states that tend to kind of know or already have established connections with the school, but we're actively looking to try to increase visibility from schools that may not have as many SMART students. So I would encourage you to look into programs that you think are the best for you. Apply to as many schools as possible, especially if you're applying as undecided, because knowing that we will pay for full tuition, and really speak to your academic pursuits, your interests, and what you want to, provide the DoD for with your skills. So I'd focus on that.
All right, great. Thanks, Alexis. Next question we have here from Anna, and we have a few questions related to this that I'm catching on the Q&A here. So her particular question, she mentions that her son will graduate high school in June of 2022. However, he will only be 17 years old upon his graduation. He is an accelerated student who is attending a middle school for gifted children. Could he apply this year, or shall we wait till next year?
If he's graduating from high school, is that what it is, in June 2022, then he
June 2022
would want to apply for the following. So yeah, so he'd want to apply next August 2022. And then that way the award start date would be fall of 2023 by the time he's 18.
Thanks, Dima. All right, question from Noel here. apologize if I said the name incorrectly. Are there any limitations to the universities that the funding can be applied to? Great question. Is there any schools in particular that aren't included within the scholarship? And Noel thanks us for a great presentation.
So as long as it's any US regionally accredited university, and then there's no cap on tuition, so that's not it's not a factor either. I don't know if Alexis, you wanted to add on to anything.
No, just, no, I was gonna say that pretty much covers it. You can be accepted into one school as well. And once you've gotten the scholarship, if your facility is okay with you switching schools, you can also do that as well. If you're, attending one and you get an opportunity to attend a different school, that's a possibility as well with your facility's support.
All right, great. Here we've got a few questions here in a row about internships that I wanted to bring up here. So Jude mentions, I focused the last 2 years on college work, so I don't have much real work experience outside of college. I'm wondering if the summer internship would help get me on track with some real work environments.
Are you saying so to as you're applying to the SMART program, you're trying to think of, will that help, or is that?
That's what I'm seeing. Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
Oh yeah, sure. Absolutely. Do a search for internship programs in STEM, and also DoD has a lot of STEM internship programs as well with a lot of our current sponsoring facilities. So I would encourage you to check out what internship opportunities there are for, there are internship opportunities for high school students in STEM, to just start networking and get that level of experience, and put that on your resume. That's a big plus for a lot of our organizations when they see, oh, they've done an internship with this Navy facility over here, or with this Air Force facility. So absolutely, get your feet wet will help you stand out as well. And it just speaks to your ability to work in a DoD environment.
Fantastic. All right, next one for you. It's going to be 2 and 1, one from Addie and one from Alea. Addie asks, are you able to do your internship overseas? And Alea asks, would you intern at the DoD location that was chosen in the application, or is it chosen for you? I could repeat both of those if you'd like.
So yeah, when you're selected for SMART, our facilities are going in there, they're interviewing you beforehand, they're finding their matches that way. So when you're given an award, what the organization is, and what they would like to do. You can definitely ask if there are any opportunities. All of our facilities are United States based. We've definitely had SMART scholars that had wonderful opportunities to do, internship out to sea, for example, with some folks in the Navy, to have an opportunity to actually get on a ship and go underway for a week to see what that was like. So our internships are at the facility, and it's with the scope of work that they would be having you do once you graduate. So all of our facilities are US based. And so for the most part, you can pretty much assume that your internship will be US based. But every now and then there'll be great opportunities for you to do a little bit of travel like that. And that's a great question to ask the facility too, if you're being interviewed by somebody, to say what opportunities are there for that.
All right. Next question. Can you change your major after you have been accepted to the SMART program?
Yes. So if you are offered an award, you will have the opportunity to submit an award change if you find out that you'd like a different major, as long as your facility signs off and that it goes through the proper channels. And even if you are, while you're in the program, if you wanted to switch schools, as Alexis mentioned earlier, or change your award length, as long as it falls within policy and the facilities sign off on it.
Yeah, because if you think about it again, when you're selected for our scholarship, the organization is looking at their workforce development needs. And so there may be the ability to have that level of flexibility. The higher up you go in your degree pursuit, if you're a PhD, you're being selected most likely for the research that you're doing in the very specific field that you're in. But again, it's up to the facility to say, that's an interesting change. Could we still use that in the way that we were hoping to employ you as? So that's why we keep harping on if the facility is okay with it, and if it's within our policies, which you can find a copy of our handbook online on our website, to take a look through that. So
Yeah, on that note, Alexis, that's actually where you could find the contact information for liaisons as well, correct? Under the contact us button, excuse me, on our website. So,
Yep. And if you're not sure which specific component that you want to work with, you can just shoot a general email out to that smart@smartscholarship.org, and then it'll get routed to me.
yeah, great. Okay, what happens if you don't like/don't fit with your intended facility, intended sponsoring facility? Do you just apply to another sponsoring facility, or do you have to repeat the entire application process again?
Sure. So we are, the way we are set up to handle selections is that one facility is selecting the student for the award itself. And let's say, during that interview process, that's a great opportunity. And you could be interviewed by multiple facilities that are interested in you. And you can indicate, to them during the interviews, where you want to go. But once you're offered an award, that is the facility that is offering you the award. So I would encourage you to attend that site visit, and to really ask a lot of questions to make sure you're a good fit. If you decide, what, I've changed my mind about this, you can opt out of the scholarship before funding happens on the 1st of August, and then just reapply next year for a different location.
On the application, to clarify here, a question, 2 recommendations, correct? A minimum of 2 recommendations with a maximum of 5?
Yes, correct.
All right, great. Apologies, I just hopped off of the question that I had up and ready.
So many wonderful questions. I see 380 so far
left.
left.
A lot of great ones. Yeah. All right. Application related here. Talking about being multilingual, is that an advantage when applying, or how could you use that to your advantage in the application process, if so?
There's nowhere specific in the application that asks for that, but I'm assuming that's something you'd want to put on your resume for sure. And you will need to upload your resume into the application. And then I'll kind of hand it over to you, Alexis, as far as how multilingual works. I think it works, for it's always a plus for anyone, but I don't think it's specific to, necessarily the SMART program.
Right. With civilian employment, it's like with any other company that, the job may not require it, but it just speaks to your skill sets. So I would definitely list it as a skill set, as a plus. And yeah.
All right. Question here from Crystal. For summer internships, do they have to be at the same facility every summer?
Yep. So again, it's workforce development. So we want you to have that level of experience and that exposure to the facility itself. So I'll say a different way too. Some of our organizations are rather large and they have multiple codes that select SMART students. So, there may be an opportunity for you to experience multiple codes if you are a multiple year student. So some facilities do what is called an internal rotation in that way. And some facilities even do that when you're employed. So there are a lot of options to get exposure to many elements of our sponsoring facilities and the facility that selects you itself.
An interesting question here from Charlie. Good question here from Charlie. Can an applicant be considered for all the programs giving the student, can an applicant be considered for all of the programs to give that particular student a better opportunity of being selected?
I think they're asking, that sounds to me like the question is, I want any facility to select me. Is that
precisely that's
sure.
what I'm reading as well?
Yeah, sure. So like Dima said, we've got the 5 possible preferences, at least the 3 that you're listing there as well. So that's an opportunity, but you're not limited to that. Our facilities will look at many other elements and other searchability tools to do so. The geographic area also helps as well. If you kind of think of it from this way, they have a narrow window of time to review applications. And if there's 2,000 of them, how do they go about finding you? So it's just one method that you have to raise your hand and say, I'm really interested in at least these 5, but you're not limited to those. So I would encourage you to reach out to us to help you kind of narrow your focus.
Perfect. Thanks, Alexis. Okay. Another clarifying question from Alicia. Just for clarification, to be eligible would you need to have a year of schooling left from the start date, or is it 1.5 years of schooling after the start date?
It's 1 year from the SMART program start date. And so for those applying this year, the program start date is August 2022. So you'll need 1 year from August 2022 in order to be eligible. So I hope that
So-
answers. It used to be 1.5 and now it's 1 year. So
Right. And to even further clarify that, if you're applying and you're starting your senior year next year, we can fund the rest of that senior year. So that we would call that a 1-year award. So.
Perfect. Hey, great question here about the scholarship essays, do's and don'ts. What are some scholarship essay do's and don'ts that are to be included or not as part of the scholarship application?
I mean, definitely stay within the character limit. Get your application reviewed by, again, a reference, an advisor, and just make sure you're answering all of the different prompt questions. So there are a few questions specifically for all applicants, and then there are additional prompts if you're a graduate student or if you're a retention applicant. So make sure you're looking at those as well. And I think that's pretty much most of it.
Be specific. If you're, there's a section for you to talk about your area of STEM interest and academic interest. So be as specific as possible. Load that sucker up with a lot of words that are searchable, especially if, let's say, you're interested in robotics. Talk all about that. Let us know the areas that you're interested in, and also check out, again, plug for the website. If there's facilities that you're really interested in and you really want to work with them, they have, fleshed out sections on what they are looking for in a Smart Scholar. So that would be another great way to let them know that, hey, I read through your information and I'm really interested in working with you. I'd love to stay with unmanned undersea systems, or I'm really interested in LiDAR technology, or whatever you're specifically interested in. And if you're just starting off your bachelor's degree and gosh, everything's interesting, talk about where your interest began, what sparked your interest in STEM, and why you want to work for the DoD. So in lieu of having, sometimes the more junior our applicants are, the less experiences they have, but you have interests and you have talents and you have enthusiasm and you have desire to see through projects. So there's a lot of ways to enhance what you have and to let facilities see that.
All right, perfect. Looks like we still have time for a couple more questions. I'm going to give you a couple of quick questions and then one additional one after that. So the 3.0 GPA, a lot of questions around that. As far as it being a hard line, one particular attendee asks, if we're below when we apply but above by the end of fall 2021, will that be considered? Maybe you could just expound upon the 3.0 GPA requirement.
Sure. Yeah, you must have a 3.0 GPA at the time of selection. You can't be selected without a 3.0 GPA. Dima?
Sorry, I'm just going to jump in there. On the registration page, you do have to put a 3.0 GPA or
even
higher.
Before that.
So when you apply, your registration will not be deemed eligible if your GPA is under a 3.0. And again, we look at the college transcripts for fall 2021 for your past, whatever transcript you include in your application. We're looking at those as well. And then, as Alexis mentioned, during selections, we're looking at those too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, great. Couple quick questions here. One from Catherine about community colleges. She was looks like might have missed that note about community colleges. Can community college students apply for the program? And then also online. There was a question there about online programs. Is that possible as well?
Mm-hmm. Yes and yes. So community colleges can apply with the understanding that when you graduate, you will need to have transferred to a university that can bestow a bachelor's degree in accordance with our accreditation requirement. So yes, you can apply as a community college with the understanding that you need to finish the bachelor's level degree at a university that is accredited. Dima, anything to add?
Okay. All right, last question we have here, and again, I know we've said this quite a few times here, but please reach out to us. Check out our social media. Check out our website. We've got a lot of great resources out there. Some really fantastic videos, application tips specifically, that we really encourage you to go out there and check out. And then feel free to reach back out or reach out at any time. smart@smartscholarship.org for any of the questions that you didn't have answered specifically here today. Last question that we have here, team, from Caitlin. If a branch's workforce needs change during your employment, could you be transferred?
That's very rare for like a BRAC to happen, where you're at a location and the scope of work that they selected you for gets moved to another location. We're working with facilities that are fairly well established, fairly large. But in that event, yes, we would replace you. We have an obligation to do so. If for a reason not you on your end causes that position to go away, we would replace you at a different facility. We wouldn't replace you.
All right, perfect. Well, team, that's time, ladies and gentlemen, here this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining. We're really excited to see your applications here shortly. Again, www.smartscholarship.org, open through December 1st. We're super excited.
Yep.
Again,
Can't wait to hear from you guys.
Yeah, and don't forget to submit your applications.
Yes, submit the application.
Yeah,
Get
great.
one started. If you haven't started one yet, what are you waiting for? Get started today.
Right? Absolutely. All right. Hey, thank you so much, Alexis and Dima, for putting on such a wonderful show here this afternoon. And again, thanks everybody for joining. And have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks.